Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Welcome to my channel if this is your first time here. My name is Miriam, and today, as you can tell by the title, we are doing a book haul. I hope you're all doing well and Happy New Year. I know it is already a few weeks into the new year, which is crazy. Time flies, but I hope you're all doing well, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful year in all ways, and especially in terms of reading. Life has been quite busy, but I have been reading and I have obviously been buying books, as you will see. I had been hoping to film more throughout the month. I did manage to do my favorite reads of 2023 video, but unfortunately there were other videos that I just didn't get around to filming that had to do with the previous year, how my reading went, my reading goals, all of that. Things have just been so busy. And I also haven't had a chance to film my December wrap up, and I'm just not really motivated to do it. And I think it's because I kind of felt burned out with how I've been doing wrap ups. They are so long-winded and I tend to just ramble. And so I'm trying to figure out a way to do my wrap ups where I'm still sharing how I feel about the book in a way that I feel I'm getting my thoughts out there, but I'm, I guess, more concise and just not as long-winded. So if you have any ideas, I am more than open to them. I have seen some booktubers tier rank their reads from each month, and I think it's super fun. I mean, ideally, I would like to film more and share shorter wrap-ups every couple of weeks or so, but I just can't commit to that right now, and I don't know. So I'm open to ideas. As I was saying though, even though things have been very busy, I am still reading and I'm also buying books because that is a whole hobby in and of itself, and it's very fun and I love buying books. And it was Christmas, so a lot of these I got as Christmas gifts. Technically I received gift cards and then I bought these books. And we do have a selection from Book Outlet, which I love. And then we do have a smattering of thrifted books, which I'm also very happy about. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. I don't have these books organized in any way, so they are all mixed together. This first book here, I don't remember if I shared it in my previous book haul. I don't remember. I don't think I did, so I'll just share it here. But that is this beautiful edition of A Christmas Carol by Dickens. I was just absolutely enamored by it when I saw this. I ended up going to a Christmas market in Toronto here in Southern Ontario, and one of the shops there, it's this vintage shop, they had this beautiful book and I needed it so bad. I also love it without the dust jacket. It's kind of creepy, but I love it. It's this beautiful like silvery teal. It's kind of hard to tell in the camera, but it's like a bluish silver. It's so beautiful. We have the inside cover, this beautiful illustration, and it does have vintage illustrations throughout that just make it such a beautiful edition. This would be a really good gift idea, but I am obsessed. I need to show these illustrations. I can't get enough of this. It is gorgeous. So now I think this is my third edition of A Christmas Carol, but I don't believe you can have too many editions of your favorite books. So I'm so excited. This next book I received as a gift from my lovely friend Nicole, and she gifted me Another Little Christmas Murder. And this one I actually also read very quickly after I received it, and I very much enjoyed it. It was a very fun, isolated house, wintry mystery. It wasn't as Christmassy as I was expecting, but I did really like it, and I am so grateful for it. This beautiful book. It is such a gorgeous book. So this one is a vintage murder mystery. It was written, I believe, in the 40s, and I would recommend. It's very fun. So that's the next book that I received. This next book is one that I have been on the lookout for many months. It took me a while to find an affordable edition because it is out of print and you can only get it secondhand. And that is The Collected Letters of Elizabeth Gaskell. This book is massive. But when I heard, I believe it's Art from the Bookshelf Odyssey. I'm so sorry if I got your channel name wrong, but he had talked about this, and Kate Howe as well. And I love Elizabeth Gaskell so much. She's one of my favorite Victorian authors. So I knew that reading her letters was something that I definitely wanted to do at some point. but finding this edition was very difficult. But then I found a used copy and I was just so happy. I just could not be happier for this book, and it's not even in terrible condition. I'm just so happy to have this. I also ended up getting The Amazing Mrs. Pollifax by Dorothy Gilman, as well as I received The Elusive Mrs. Pollifax from my lovely friend Amanda, from Book Lover Amanda. So she got me book 3 and I ended up getting book 2. And I did read book 1. I think I hauled that back in the fall. And I read book 1 in December as well. So whenever I end up talking about what I read in December, you will hear my thoughts on that book. But I had such a fun time with it, and I am so excited to continue on with this series. Mrs. Pollifax is such a wonderful character. It's basically this woman, Mrs. Pollifax in her 60s, who ends up becoming a spy. She works for the CIA back in the 60s, and I believe in each book she has different like missions and she travels, and it's just so much fun. Next up, I ended up getting 5 books within one series, and that is the Maisie Dobbs mystery series. So the first book, Maisie Dobbs, I read, I think right at the beginning of 2023, and I very much enjoyed it, but I wasn't sure if it's a series that I want to read every single book from, a series that I want to complete. And so I ended up reading book 2, Birds of a Feather, and I had got it from the library and I read it and I loved it. And I just know that this is a series I'm definitely going to want to continue. So I ended up buying myself a copy of Birds of a Feather. And then we have Pardonable Lies, which is book 3, book 4, which is Messenger of Truth, book 5, An Incomplete Revenge, and book 6, which is Among the Mad. The one thing that bugs me, and it's not that big of a deal, but it is kind of a big deal. These are all different editions. The first, like books 3, 4, 5, and 6 are fine, even though they're not all from the same publisher. But book 2 is just randomly so short. There just isn't an edition of book 2 that is one of these, so it doesn't really matter, but there we have it. I'm very excited for these. Next is The Woman from Lydia by Angela Hunt. This is book 1 in the Emissary series, and I do enjoy Angela Hunt. I haven't loved all of her books, but I do really like her writing, and I love biblical fiction, so I'm very excited for this book. It is about Lydia from the Bible. I believe she was the seller of purple, like that special dye that creates the color purple, and she definitely played a role in the early church, and I'm very excited for this book. I also ended up getting Take My Hand by Dolan Perkins Valdez, and I'm not going to read the summaries for these books or we'll be here forever, but it does have a little blurb, and it says, a searing and compassionate novel about a young Black nurse's shocking discovery and burning quest for justice in post-segregation Alabama. And it looks like it's set in the 70s, I believe, and it's inspired by true events. So I'm very excited. I've heard really good things about this book, and I just hope it's a good one. And the fact that it has to do with a nurse that is a main character, that's a huge buzzword for me, as I myself am a nurse. So I really like that. I'm very excited. This next book I am so excited to read, and that is March by Geraldine Brooks. This one is about Mr. March from Little Women, the beloved father of the sisters in Little Women, and it's basically about his journey throughout the Civil War and how that affected his relationship with Marmee, and I'm just so excited for this book. I've heard it's quite intense and deals with some difficult topics, so definitely have to be in the right headspace for it, but I am so excited. Little Women's my favorite book of all time. You probably all know that, but I am very excited for anything Little Women related. Next up is The Last Lifeboat by Hazel Gaynor. This one is a historical fiction set during World War II, and I don't know much about it, but I think it has to do with a boat of children leaving England to go to Canada, and then it capsizes, and there's a small boat of survivors, I think. I think that's what it's about, but I really enjoyed The Last Christmas in Paris that Hazel Gaynor wrote with another author, Heather Webb, and I have heard great things about her individual books, and I love historical fiction, so I'm very excited for this. Next is a historical fiction for book lovers, and that is The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek by Kim Michelle Richardson. And I've heard amazing things about this. I think a lot of people who love historical fiction have already read it. It's very popular. This book is basically set in the 30s in Kentucky, and it has to do, I believe, with pack horse librarians. And I've read a couple other books with that as, I guess, the setting, the inspiration for the story. So I think I'm going to really like it, as I loved the other 2 books I've read around this topic. And let me know if you've read it and what your thoughts were. Next is a historical fiction that I've already read, but I had borrowed it from the library. I loved it so much that I needed my own copy, and I found it on Book Outlet, which I was very happy about, and that is Crow Mary by Kathleen Grissom. This book was incredible. I adored it. I loved it so much, and I needed my own copy. It is about Crow Mary. She was a Crow woman in the 1800s, around the Civil War era, a real woman, and she ended up marrying a white fur trader, and it's their journey up north towards Saskatchewan from, I think it started off in Montana, and then they traveled up to Saskatchewan. So amazing story, poignant, wonderful writing on the author's part, and I just loved it so much. Next up is a contemporary, which I don't read a lot of, but this is, I believe, Christian contemporary, and I've heard really, really good things about it, and just about this author in general, and that is The Edge of Belonging by Amanda Cox. And this one, I don't want to know too much going into it, but from what I do know, it deals with themes of adoption and identity and basically broken people finding healing and things like that. I think the main character is trying to figure out some mysteries about her adoption and all of that. So I have very, very high hopes. I really, really hope that I like this. I ended up getting a couple of middle grades as well. And the first one here is Nevermoor, The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. I don't really know anything about this, and I'm just going to go in expecting a fun time, and if that's what I get, I will be very happy. I have heard this compared to Harry Potter. I've never read Harry Potter, so I don't know how it compares or anything like that, but I hope I enjoy it. Then we have a middle grade that I recently read, and that is Nothing Else But Miracles by Kate Albus. And this one I was gifted by my amazing friend Lindsay from Books for Christian Girls. She gave this to me for Christmas, and like I said, I did read it and I very, very much enjoyed it. It is such a sweet story. I love Kate Albus. She has only written 2 books, but I already consider her to be a favorite author. And yeah, it was very sweet. I would definitely recommend this book, and I'm so, so happy to have a physical copy. This next book was so difficult to find. It was so hard to find a copy of. For some reason, none of the libraries in my area have it, and the only copy I could find online that wasn't ridiculously expensive is actually a library copy from, I think, the States. Anyways, I'm talking about The Dollmaker of Krakov by R.M. Romero, and as you can see, this was a library copy, which it's fine, it was very cheap. But this one is about a talking doll. She's a talking doll named Carolina, and she lives with a dollmaker, and as Nazi Germany takes over Poland, this dollmaker tries to help his Jewish friends, and I'm really curious to see how everything plays out with this talking doll. I've heard amazing things about this book, so I'm very hopeful that I'm going to love it. It says, R.M. Romero eloquently fuses fairy tale, folklore, and history to illustrate the power of love and the inherent will to survive even in the darkest of times. I love World War II historical fiction. I love a little bit of fantasy. I don't know if this is middle grade or YA. I have no idea, but again, I've heard great things, and I hope to get to it this winter. It just feels like a very wintry read. So that is The Dollmaker of Krakov. Next up is something quite different than anything I've ever hauled in a book haul before, but that is the Bible Recap by, what's her name? Tara Lee Cobble. And this book is basically what the title says, the Bible Recap. It goes through the Bible in chronological order, and it kind of groups a few chapters here and there. There's like a reading plan for 1 year through the Bible in chronological order, and then it just gives a summary, a recap of that reading. It's such a great resource, and I would recommend if you are reading the Bible in chronological order. I think it's great. Next up is a classic, and that is The Mill and the Floss by George Eliot. And I did have a copy of this, but I ended up getting a paperback just because the copy that I have is this very old vintage edition. I don't know what year it was published, but it has to be close to 100 years old. It's very, very old, very fragile, and the pages are super thin. So I definitely don't want to read from that edition, which is why I ended up going with this paperback. But I've heard this one is a good winter classic to read. So I'm hoping I can start it either at the end of January, beginning of February. We shall see, but I am looking forward to it. I'm also collecting the Royal Spinous Mystery books, and I got a couple random ones in the series that I didn't have. I don't have all of them, but I'm very, very close to having collected all of them. And I got the Last Mrs. Summers and God Rest Ye Royal Gentlemen. So I don't know which numbers these are. I think this is 15 and this one's close abouts there. But the books that I do have out of this series, I have them in all sorts of editions. I have some of these large hardcovers, and then I have some smaller hardcover, and I have regular paperback and mass market paperback. I've just been trying to find them secondhand or on Book Outlet. And when I do, I grab them, and I am totally fine with that. So very excited to have these next books in the series. Next up is a book that I'm very, very nervous to read, but also I really want to read. And I have very mixed feelings, but that is Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. This one sounds really odd. It basically says, a virtuoso novel of art, time, love, and plague that takes the reader from Vancouver Island in 1912 to a dark colony on the moon nearly 500 years later, unfurling a story of humanity across centuries and space. I don't really know anything else. I just know that you should read Station 11 and The Glass Hotel before you read this. I adored Station 11. I loved that book so much. The Glass Hotel I had very, very mixed feelings about. So I'm nervous about this one. I'm really nervous to see what I end up thinking, but I think Emily St. John Mandel is a very, very talented author, and I am excited, just very nervous. Next up, we have My Plain Jane, and this is the second book in the Lady Janies series, I think it's called, by these three authors, Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. And basically there are 3 books in this series, each have to do with a Jane from history. So the first one is My Lady Jane, and I already hauled that a few months ago, and it is about Jane, I forget the full name. She's from the Tudor period. And this one is basically about Jane Eyre, I think. These books are basically just comedic, ridiculous twists on these girls from history. It says it's a fantastic, romantic, comedic, entirely but not really faithful retelling of Jane Eyre. So I'm very, very excited for it, and I've heard they're just super, super fun YA books. These 3 authors have also written a series about Marys from history, and I'm very intrigued by that as well. But now I have books 1 and 2, and I am hoping to read them soon. Very, very excited. This next book is a very recent release, and I'm very, very hopeful that I'm gonna love it, and that is The Lily of Ludgate Hill by Mimi Matthews. The first 2 books in the series I had a bit of trouble with for various reasons, particularly book 2. But all in all, I love Mimi Matthews' writing so, so much. And this one is about a character and her love interest I think I'm really going to enjoy reading about. So it's the 3rd book in the series, and each book follows a girl from this friend group in Victorian era London. I have not read the summary. I don't want to know too much going in. I'm just really, really hopeful that this one will be my favorite out of the 3. And again, I love Mimi Matthews so much, so fingers crossed. This next book is another one that I had some trouble finding a copy of. The brand new copies were so, so expensive, but I ended up finding a copy that shipped all the way from the UK. It took like over a month to get here, but I'm so happy it made its way to my bookshelf, and it's in very good condition for being a used copy. But that is What Kitty Did Next by Carrie Cableen. And this one is basically, I don't know if it's like a retelling of Pride and Prejudice, but it's Kitty Bennett's story from Pride and Prejudice, one of the forgotten sisters. I consider her and Mary to be very much, you know, forgotten and not really, we don't get a lot of them in Pride and Prejudice. So in this one, it's all about Kitty and her story, and I've heard nothing but praise for this book. So I will probably read it around Jane Austen July. I'm not sure. I might just be dying to read it and get to it beforehand, but I am so, so excited to see what this author did with Kitty's story. Next is another beloved middle grade book that I have not yet read, but I am dying to read, and that is The Vanderbeekers of 141st Street by Karina Jan Glaser, I think is how you say her name. But this one, it does have a short summary, so I will just read that. It says, it's 5 days before Christmas, and the Vanderbeeker children should be dreaming about sugar plums and presents. But when their curmudgeonly landlord mysteriously refuses to renew their lease, the 5 siblings must find a way to change his mind before New Year's. All they have to do is show him how wonderful they are, right? But as every well-intentioned plan goes comically awry, their shenanigans only exasperate their landlord more. What the Vanderbeekers need now is a Christmas miracle. I've heard it's great fun, and it's set in New York around the Christmas season, so I'm very, very excited to read it. And last but not least, this book is one that I predict will be a 5-star read. I am so, so hopeful that it is, and that is Miss Bunkle's book by D.E. Stevenson. This one, again, it's another one of those books where everyone who's read it seems to just adore it, and I really hope that I adore it as well. It says, Barbara Buncle is in a bind. Times are harsh, and Barbara's bank account has seen better days. Maybe she could sell a novel, if she knew any stories. Stumped for ideas, Barbara draws inspiration from her fellow residents of Silverstream, the little English village she knows inside and out. To her surprise, the novel is a smash. It's a good thing she wrote under a pseudonym, because the folks of Silverstream are in an uproar. But what really turns Miss Bunkle's world around is this. What happens to the characters in her book starts happening to their real-life counterparts. Does life really imitate art? Who knew one book could cause so much chaos? I love the little blurb on the back. It also says, there are no vampires, no fairies, no weird creatures, just a sweet story about real people living in a world I've always dreamed of. I love how Kate Howe describes many books as being life-softening, and I've been finding more and more I need more books like that in my life. So I think this will be a life-softening one. I'm hopeful. I think because a lot of people who I trust and people whose tastes are similar to mine have loved this book, I think I will too. So that is the last book in this massive book haul. I guess that's what happens when it's the holiday season, and I just can't help myself. You know what? That's okay, because books bring joy, and it's something that I think is an investment. But that is it for this video. That's it for this book haul. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so, so much. And if you have read any of these books, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. But thank you all so, so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.